Hello, everybody, and welcome once again to Todd and Shane's Cloudy Podcast, number 420, recorded live Wednesday, January 30th, 2019.
Woo-woo.
Well, back for a second appearance, Shane. This is 2 weeks in a row. This breaks your previous record, I think.
I mean, I really try to go out of my way for the people. The people demanded it. They're like, the subscription rate fell. I don't know if you looked at our statistics. People were unsubscribing right and left as soon as I wasn't here, so.
Which is funny because I didn't know we had more than 2 subscribers, so I would think like one right and one left, and then we'd be done, but apparently not.
Yeah, but I think your mom's got that script where even if she unsubscribes, it resubscribes her.
I do. That's one good thing about having my mom's passwords. Yeah, it does work out.
So in episode 420, very exciting for the web response codes here.
Yeah, so I went and looked. There is no official HTTP code for 420, and I cannot imagine why that is.
So it's interesting, though. I went a little deeper. I wasn't satisfied with there wasn't an official code.
Oh, my.
So there is an unofficial code.
No way. Somebody stepped in and found a code for 420. I am shocked.
Well, so it turns out that Twitter search and the Trends API client, the Trends API, when it returns, if it's getting overran because it's being hit too much, it returns a 420, and it is enhance your calm.
I was going to say calm down or chill out or something like that. Yep.
Yeah. So, but yeah, I'm probably on some list because I was trying to go that extra mile for you guys. I was really like 420ing it up in here, like trying to search and do, and so I hit all those websites. I'm certain there's somebody, I'm on a list now, but what do you do?
Yeah, well, I'm sure one of many lists, I'm sure, in some of the dumb things that we've done over the years. That's awesome. Yeah, and I did look at, there is a 421, and as we know, there's a 419, but no 420. Oddest thing.
Yeah, but enhance your calm.
Yeah, just chill. Yeah, I like it. Production notes, the folks at SysKit, we have not updated their sign just yet, but I'm talking to them about some other stuff, so I need to find out if that emblem that they sent me just not too long ago. I mean, it's probably still the one that they want. I mean, they sent it to me 12, 13 months ago. I mean, it can't.
I only thought it was 9 months ago, so I'm certain it's still good.
Yeah, probably so. But thanks to those folks, they're doing some great work, talking to them about some other things. It's always good. It's fun. I used to work at a software company and got to do product-y stuff, and I miss that a little bit. I wouldn't say I'm particularly good at it. Well, I guess we did some at our previous employer too. It's fun thinking through what customers want and what customers need and all that. I like it.
Yeah. Well,
and I definitely like the image that you threw in the chat room there. That's
smiling dogs, if that doesn't enhance your calm, I don't know what does.
Can't go wrong. So one of the things I want to start out with, I am a week into my new age, a week into 45. It doesn't feel a lot different than 44. My hip kind of hurts a little bit, but I'm sure that's unrelated. But I did get in the mail here a couple of days ago, right on schedule, a birthday card from Lori, and it is the charity birthday drive. So for those of you who are watching the video, and if you can pull your eyes away from my sexy stubble long enough to enjoy the birthday card, I did get that. All the people who signed up and the charities they gave to, it's very nice. Very sweet of you all to do that. I appreciate that.
Yep, and now that we are past that, I can begin giving to charity again. So
you can, and I don't want to take all the credit for this. Well, that's not true. I do want to take all the credit for this. But there's this growing trend on Facebook where people put, for my birthday, I'm raising money for this and raising money for that. I don't know if you've seen those things. I can only imagine that they were 100% inspired by you guys doing all this. So we've made a difference. We've improved Facebook.
Yeah, and and I wonder, right, I'm such a cynic. I struggle with those, right? I mean, is Facebook doing it so they can grab the 4% transaction fees? And, is it... I just always assume everything that they do that's nice is a way to make more money. So kudos to them. People like it, but
they themselves are not a charity, so they do need to make money. As a stockholder and all that. You want to pay attention to that. So they're probably getting their slice in there too.
I'm not a Facebook stockholder though. I missed that one.
I don't think I am either. For me, stocks are not an investment. Stocks are fun. I have other investments, and so stocks are. So the Apple stock's been on sale the last little bit, so picked up a little bit more of that.
Yeah, well, and I'm really excited about. I'm hoping that it means the iPhone goes on sale. I'll probably get a new iPhone when they finally realize they got to cut that price.
Boy, I don't know. Give up that sweet one you've got now where the internet doesn't work and it's all slow. Give all that up for a shiny new iPhone.
I know I was close, and then I saw this latest announcement. I'm like, man, they have got to give up at some point and bring that price down.
I don't believe they do. I don't believe Apple is immune. So my degree's in business, and so I took all the marketing classes and all these classes about how to be a good business. But it's funny, you can always find some incredibly successful business that does everything wrong, and it works. And I think Apple is just one of those businesses.
Yeah, I mean, we'll see where it boils down. But I mean, and it's interesting, right? Because one of our friends, Brad, he posted on Twitter, basically said $100 wasn't stopping anyone from buying a new iPhone, so it's not going to help to reduce the price. And I don't argue on the internet, so I didn't bother. But I disagreed. I was like, no, the current price for the iPhone has absolutely stopped me from buying a new iPhone.
Yeah, price of things have stopped me. So I'm running many people will be surprised. The phone that I'm using, that's not it right now, is not the newest Samsung Galaxy, but the previous one. And it's not because I don't like cool new things with blue LEDs. Lord knows I do. But yeah, it was just too expensive. And had it been $100 cheaper, I might have done it. You never know.
Yeah, I'm on a 7 Plus, right? I don't even know how many iPhones there's been since the 7.
14 of them, I think.
Yeah.
Brad said another thing about the Amazon or about the Apple thing. He said they were sitting on, however many billion in cash, and he was questioning how wise of a decision that was. So my response back to him was, what should they do with it? Like, what should they do with that money that you think they're not doing? Like, what you think it's a bad thing? What is a better thing? And he didn't have an answer for that.
Do you think sitting on $14 billion in cash, is that comfortable, or do you think that it's kind of hard and scratchy on your butt?
You got to get it leveled out. And, so me, I got the left hip thing, so you got to get it just right. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and I found out, speaking of your mom earlier, your mom on Facebook chimed in on my thread about, I need a new desk chair, that you need a new desk chair also. So maybe that's what we should be talking about right now. What have you looked, or you have thoughts on a desk chair?
So my parents have been trying to buy me a new desk chair for, call it 3 years. And I think right now, it's just a ploy. So every holiday that comes up, like, for Christmas, we were going to get you a desk chair, but you didn't tell us what you wanted. And then like 3 weeks later, we were going to get you a desk chair for your birthday, but you haven't told us what you wanted. So I think they're just using this as an excuse to not buy me anything. That's my cynical view. I have not looked at the chair that I have now. I've had for probably 10 years, and it's got a fair amount of electrical tape on it, patching things up. And I think that's common, right? That's
Mine does.
Normal. Yeah, there you go. So I don't know that I'm abnormal, but no, I have not. The problem, and I think it's probably the same problem you have, back to this thing, the cost of office chairs offends me. And I just can't shell out their money for my chair for that kind of money.
Yeah, and I really struggle, right? So, I realize most of you are not Facebook friends with me. Good for you, because you don't want to be Facebook friends with me.
Nope.
But looking at these chairs, there's a lot of people in our circle that swear up and down by that Herman Miller Aeron for like $1,200 or whatever it is. And I think it's like they're messing with me. But they're adamant. I don't know.
Oh yeah. Yeah, and people I otherwise trust, like Randy, I trust Randy.
Yeah,
he's not a jerk.
Vesa chimed in, right? Vesa's never said something that wasn't true his entire life. So
no, he's Finnish. He can't. So I don't know. I don't know if I want to go that route or not, but
I just can't part with $1,200 for a chair.
I'd sit on a $12 stool from Walmart before I did that.
Yeah, and then my other friends, I had other friends who chimed in and were like, well, thank you for having this thread. I had no idea that $1,200 chairs existed. I'm like, no.
Yes.
Different people, different stuff. I don't know.
Yep. So other things that didn't exist yesterday was the ability to log into Office 365 or anything Microsoft related. That was a luxury yesterday.
Was that a big deal? Did that cause any problems?
And, I had to look, but it popped up a little bit in the news feeds. So like yourself, I follow a bunch of Microsoft tech people on Twitter and friends on Facebook, and then I'm on a couple of mailing lists, and I could tell exactly the second that problem started because everything just everywhere.
Yeah, and I started, customers were like, hey, well, what am I doing wrong? I can't hit the save button. I'm like, well, hitting the save button's what you're doing wrong. There's no fix. And, and I haven't, went searching there, and I was too busy looking up 420. to go and see if there's been an official
endeavor. Yeah.
there's been any official updates here. But what I could surmise from kind of all the different inputs I was getting is it really felt like something behind the scenes in Azure, like Traffic Manager is really the one that I think it was down or was having intermittent issues. And so everything is routed through Azure Traffic Manager, to run things like Power Apps and Flow and the whole Office 365 ecosystem. And I think that was really what was broken.
Close. So what specifically was broken was things could not get to login.microsoftonline.com. That endpoint was unavailable. As you can imagine, login.microsoftonline.com is important.
Yeah.
And the reason that it couldn't get to that was DNS issues. Couldn't resolve it, or were resolving it incorrectly. So it was a weird problem because it was only the logon process. If you had a token, you were good. You didn't see anything. But if you had to renew a token or you were logging in new, you couldn't hit that endpoint. And again, it depended on where your DNS was cached, all that. So they knew about it. They knew where the DNS issue was, which provider it was, but everything's cached and those things take a while. I don't know if it's fixed now or not. That was the issue, DNS.
Yep.
Yeah. And you can tell, so they've had a few outages recently. There was that MFA issue here not too long ago. You can tell they are constantly in the background, fixing things, tweaking things, making them more secure constantly. And every once in a while, a wheel just pops off and this happens.
Yeah. Well, and they also have such a pod mentality, right, around segmenting the infrastructure pieces and your servers and all. There's a whole bunch of smarts that go in, right? It's not like there's one big data center with all the servers are in there and it's all off or it's all on, right? They have to roll these things out. Like Power Apps changes, it takes them about a week from the time that they say, make this worldwide until every tenant in the world has a particular change.
Yeah.
So to your point here, a lot of times in these cases, they might have just messed up one pod of feature X or feature Y. And so then only the people who have the unluckiness of going through that pod for that particular call are having the issue. And it's just I don't even understand how I understand how they do it, but the sheer volume of information it would require to figure out why you can't log in there's 1,000 little things that could be broken and probably 47 different pods that your transaction goes through.
Yeah, and I think this was a long time ago. I saw a talk, this is probably 5 years ago now, where one of the Azure guys was talking about that. And he was talking about some specifics, but mainly around the idea behind how they find problems now. And he was saying that, in the old days, you would just go through logs and you'd look for errors. And when you saw an error about a hard drive going bad, you replace the hard drive, so on and so forth. And they can't do that anymore. There are just so many machines, hundreds of thousands of machines, they can't even begin to see every error that pops up, let alone take action on it, investigate it. So they had to take completely different approaches to figuring out where problems are. And it basically comes down to heuristics. Basically, not looking at the thing that's broken, but the result that it's having with other people. So he gave a couple of examples. One of them was there's a status page that tells what the uptime for different things is. They monitor that. And when the hits on that page spike, they know something's broken somewhere. And then they can start, and they've also figured out, where those hits come from, gives them an idea where to look. So this pod thing, and they've also figured out that some cultures, some countries, pull the trigger on that quicker than others. So they know there's like the canary in the coal mine. Well, this area is hitting it. It might not be so bad. Oh, this area's hit. Yeah, something's really screwed up because these guys never check the page, and it was just interesting the way they have to rethink that.
Yeah. So probably 4 years ago, I had the privilege I've been in the room where all that is done.
Oh, very exciting.
Yeah. So I got to interact with that team and kind of have some of these nerdy conversations about exactly the stuff you were just going through. And it was very interesting. I got to sit in the war room with the red phone. When things like yesterday happen, there's, one room that lights up and that's kind of command central for those type of issues. And but yeah, and it was so, like you said, the scale is just so massive.
Yeah.
But then the problems are so individual, right? They have to handle an individual's issue for a problem that's this big. And they were just talking about, and this was back several years, or back before they had the ability like to get into Azure VMs and stuff directly. Like they couldn't get, so many rules of engagement those the support guys have to go through to not violate any of the terms of information security and stuff.
Yeah.
Not fun job at all. Whew.
Yeah. And we're seeing in the chat room, Stacy's mentioned that she lost some Power App stuff. That sucks. And it's one of the significant downsides of the cloud, but I just don't know any way to mitigate that risk. I don't know how to do it.
No, I mean, it's just, do the pros outweigh the cons?
I think they do.
I do too.
But that was a good one. So speaking of your beloved Power Apps in the Power Platform, saw an article this week that they have given a web admin interface to the Power Platform, which I was not aware of, and specifically around the ability to manage your data gateways from one location in Office 365. So the article was pretty recent, but I don't know how recent that functionality's been out there.
Yeah. So I haven't messed with that actual functionality, but I understand the needs, because one of the great things about the data gateway was literally anyone could install it on their local machine and then connect it to their tenant, and they were off and running. They had a connection back to their on-premises data, and there was a personal mode, and it was a little it could be a little sketchy, I guess, at times if people were trying to get data in and out. And so it's good that now you can kind of give you this holistic view of what's going on with the different gateways in your tenant. And governance we've talked about before. Governance for the Power Apps, the Power Platform as a whole, has been kind of an afterthought. And so
to be generous, it's barely a thought. Yeah. So I think this is great. The proliferation of these things, they're all great technologies. Flow, Power Apps, Data Gateway. I encourage all of my customers to use them. I had a call yesterday with a customer who's migrating from SharePoint 2013 on-prem to Office 365, and they were asking about workflows specifically. And they were asking whether so they had the same problems that you and I got beaten up on with the SharePoint 2013 workflow manager being totally unreliable. So all of their workflows on-prem are the SharePoint 2010 ones, which migrate up pretty easily to Office 365. And then they were saying, so, do we have to move over to Flow once we get there? Will these work? And I'm like, well, they will work, but yes, you should migrate to Flow. And here's all the great things that it does. Here are the warts. Here are the problems you're going to find, the administration, the governance and all that. But you got to do this. And I think that was the step. I planted the seed. I'll hit him up here in another month and see.
Well, I'm proud of you, kid. Good job.
But so I'm not as much of a Power Apps and Flow user. I'm more still on the administration side. I like that it's there to help with governance, because that is the number one thing I get questions about with Flow and Power Apps is how do I see where they're at? How do I see who owns them? Those kind of things. So this is a great move. I'm frustrated that it is a different admin center than like the Power Apps admin center or the Flow admin center. Now it's an admin center for the things that already have an admin center. That's frustrating. But more importantly, even more irritating than that is it's not listed in the admin centers in Microsoft 365. So unless you know that it exists and know the URL for it, you have no idea. It's an unknown.
Nice.
You see what I did there?
I did.
And so I think that's, and I'm sure they'll fix that eventually, but the discoverability is just frustrating.
Yeah, well, and honestly, the admin centers for Power Apps and Flow are meh at best. So honestly, I would like to see them just take the pain and say, hey, let's have a Power Platform admin center, get all this stuff in one place, and and just start from a blank slate and build it instead of trying to massage the poop fest that we currently have.
Yeah, I think that's exactly, and I gotta believe that's where they're going. I think that's.
Yeah, I can't imagine. because the SharePoint team, right? They had an admin center and they went and rebooted it into a new admin center, and I can't imagine the support and the issues that caused for people as they kind of took admin center A and became admin center B.
And they're still doing it because there's just a ton of things you can't do in the new modern admin center that you can in the old one. So they have to leave them both.
Well, the good news is SharePoint has a rich tradition of classic versus modern. So
carrying on the rich tradition of, yes.
Yeah, well, and to that point, did you see the article about in April of this year, they're going to take away some of the capabilities around the classic. So today with SharePoint Online, you can set your entire tenant to be classic, right? To hold on to that classic experience. And so as of April, they're going to take away that button so that you can no longer do it a tenant-wide, and you have to go and piece by piece if you want to retain the modern enforcements or the classic enforcements. So I think that's interesting.
So I have in my list of blog posts that I've not written a blog post about what it means, the difference between classic and modern, because it means so many different things. And let me bring this up because I can't even begin to get it right without my notes. But so it's the thing converting the blog post is about converting modern to or classic to modern. So the problem is there are a bunch of different things that can be classic or modern. It's not a tenant. Your tenant is not classic or modern. It can be the site template that you created your site with, can be a modern team site or a classic team site. Your pages can be classic or modern. Your lists or libraries can be classic or modern, but really the list or library is not. It's the page that views that list or library can be. So to your point about the setting is there is not a way to force classic, or there's not a way to remove the ability to create modern and remove that button at the tenant level. You have to do it at the individual levels. But where? Sites? Lists or libraries, pages? Where is this setting? And so it turns out I think it's at the list and library level, I believe. But then there's a thing, so with lists and libraries, if you have a classic one and you convert it to modern, and it's all great and you can do the things, and you're like, but it's missing this one thing that I really need, you can move it back. Because it's really just a view of the list or library. With the page, you can't, and you can't even really migrate a page from classic to modern. You have to create a modern page and then copy over, though there are some tools and techniques to do that. But you're not migrating, you're copying, so you have to create a new one, copy it, switch the home page. At the site level, your template's your template. You can't change your template after the web has been created. So, I mean, so I'm trying to write this blog post about all of this, and there's so many places, and I just don't know I don't know that I can do it justice.
Yeah, I'm with you. So in the chat room and then in the show notes, there is a link to the article that kind of announced this change that was coming in April. And so he does have a list of some of the workarounds. So it might help you with some of the different nooks and crannies that you can kind of look at for massaging those manually.
Yeah. It's but I kind of want to write that blog post, and I've talked to Mark about that because he's so it's funny. Mark and I have been, and I think we talked about it on the podcast that he was on. Mark and I have been doing the SharePoint thing for a while. Like we don't know everything, but we understand the concepts. And even when him and I were talking out this blog post, we couldn't agree on things until we both this thing with the thing. He's like, oh yeah. I mean, it is that complicated for people whose lives have revolved around this for 10 or 12 years. Still complicated.
Yeah, still complicated. And that's, and to add to that, so some of the other recent stuff they've announced, so like they're redoing some of the audience targeting stuff for SharePoint Online. Once again, we have baggage from way back in 2003. The modern list, they're adding a whole bunch of updates to those that are coming out real soon. So that's going to add to more confusion because these modern lists will have this great experience, but the classic list won't. And the Franken site for me as an admin / super user, it's really difficult. I can't imagine what the standard user feels about with these Franken sites that are half modern, half classic today.
Yeah, I experienced this myself with a customer. I was writing some PowerShell to do bulk user profile imports, and that process is just a mess. But one of the things that it does is it spits out a .txt file as a log, as an error log, in your tenant. One version of the document library, classic or modern, will let you view text files inline. One of them will not and forces you to download. So I think modern has the viewer built in, classic does not. So if I click the text file with the classic view on, it tries to download. So then I switched to modern, but then I was trying to get the URL to another file. In modern, you can't hover over a file and get the actual URL. It's that silly share link and copy link. Then I just switched back to classic to get the actual link. Like, yeah.
It's
So, and you already, you posted it. Okay, the thing. So it's just all that stuff. But I think I need to do that blog post, if nothing else, for my edification.
Yeah, and those are the type of ones, if you sit down and write that, right, it just helps you get a lot more clear on all of those little pieces. And because if you can teach something, right, if you can write a articulate blog post, then you have to know it 10 levels better than that. And so that'll force you to learn it. So yeah, I agree with that.
I was just reading a blog post today about the secret algorithm behind learning. And it essentially is talking about Richard Feynman, who's a physicist, has this thing called the Feynman technique for learning things. And step one is to teach it to an 8-year-old child. If you want to learn something, you have to teach it to an 8-year-old child. And what that makes you do when you have to teach it to an 8-year-old child, you can't hide your ignorance behind any jargon. You can't use complicated words and any of that. You have to break it down into bare essential elements, and they've got short attention spans, so you got to and if you can't do that, then you don't know it. And then after you do that, listen to their feedback and find out all the things you don't understand, and then go do it again. But yeah, that's that whole thing.
Nope. Can't agree enough with that. I've never heard Feynman's explanation of it, but that is absolutely, I agree 100%. So
I put that in the chat room, and I will put that in the notes as well. So another good thing that has been showing up, I'm noticing, is more documentation. And while I'm not a huge fan of Microsoft Teams for a variety of reasons, I am a fan of they just put out some new documentation to help admins, and it's got some PowerShell in it and all of that. So if you're using Teams, check that out.
yeah, I'm with you, right? I have not fully embraced Teams either. And it's been really annoying because a lot of things I've tried to embrace it for, it doesn't do well yet. So like I keep trying to do it shouldn't be the hard things, but because in theory it should be a replacement for Skype for Business. That's their goal.
Yeah.
But they're missing like 712 of the features that I need for it to be an actual replacement for Skype for Business. So
yeah, it's and I've had a couple of issues, and I've told this hysterical story before, where I was in a video chat with somebody in a group, like a meeting. Somebody pasted something in the chat, and I clicked the thing to see the URL and clicked the URL, and then I wanted to close the chat because I wanted more video screen. And the thing that I clicked that I thought was closing the chat closed Teams, closed the meeting, and so I just went away. So there's just all these little UI things, and just
yeah. Well, one that we struggle with, so I do lots of screen sharing support for Power Apps and Flow and that type of thing. And so forever we've used Skype for Business as our primary, because it works great. You both get in, they can share their screen, I can take control, boom, we're off and running. With Teams, in an effort to be more governance savvy, I guess, they've got a whole bunch of security settings that you can enforce as an administrator for your tenant. But even when my tenant creates the meeting, if you join it with your account from your tenant, then all of your security stuff applies.
Great.
So one of the where it keeps biting me in the backside is they can lock down the ability to give remote control. So I can send you a screen share, right? I created my tenant. I send you the screen share. You share your screen. I'm like, Todd, you are terrible at typing. Let me type in this stuff for you. You go to click the button to share control, and it says, nope, your administrator has prevented you from doing it. And there's just, at that point, we have to switch tools. We just have to say, all right, well, I'll send you a Skype meeting because,
yeah, and it used to work. Like, we lost that. It was there, and then it took it away.
Yeah, so over governance of Teams is not making me happy.
Yeah, there's just a bunch of things. And I gather that the things that you and I are doing, specifically cross-tenant things, are just not what they planned. But man, they got to address it. They just got to.
Yeah. And we are also, what we're seeing a lot of, or not a lot, but more of than I would have expected, is as we're starting to bring on new clients, they're saying, hey, we only work with people via Teams now. So like several of our customers will not email or phone call with us. It is a team channel, right, where they provide, hey, I need you to work on this and this and this and this. And like we have to have that whole interaction around that work for them in a Teams channel. So poor Nicola is in like 7 clients Teams environments. I mean, it's become a trend. It's weird.
It's well, people want to embrace it, and Microsoft's made it very clear that's where their intentions are heading. Um, I thought having to switch between clients or between tenants, not tenants, but between teams, different customer teams was bad. But then I got added to one and they didn't add my regular tenant ID. So now not only do I have to change teams, but I have to log in to change. So then I have to have a web page open so that I don't have to do that. But then if I have the web page open in Chrome, which is my default browser, if it's the last instance of Chrome that I've clicked before I click a link in another application, then it opens up in that instance of Chrome. So then I can't do it in Chrome. I do it in, I mean, it's just this whole mess of stuff.
Yeah, I'd be having a talk with them about changing what account they had added.
Yeah, but again, you know, for customer stuff, you don't want to be too much of a jerk. You don't, it's tough, but enough hate about Teams. But there's more documentation out there, and this documentation is aimed at the IT pro and the admin. So another thing that I saw that was interesting was, So groups, Office 365 groups, I've been playing with those a lot lately, and I've come to terms with them. I like what they offer now that I understand them. I'm going to go off on a rant here, totally tangential. Are you caught up on Freakonomics?
No.
So I listened to a Freakonomics podcast the other day, and I thought of you. Oh. It is the full interview with Mark Cuban.
Ooh.
It's a sports thing, so it's right up your alley, Freakonomics, Mark Cuban. And Mark Cuban's a big fan of esports, thinks it's going to be the next big thing.
Yep.
And Dubner was asking him, really, why do you think so? And I think Cuban missed the mark on why that. But a lot of people I've seen, a lot of people just don't understand. How can you watch people play video games? That's just dumb. That's just the epitome of lazy. But I don't see it that way. To me, it's exactly the same as watching people play football. If you like football, why don't you go play football? Why do you watch other people do the thing that you like? Makes perfect sense, though. You watch somebody play baseball, but now you like playing video games. Why do you want to watch somebody else play video games? That doesn't make any sense. It's the same thing. Yep. And so Cuban doesn't make that argument, but what he does say is, once you understand something, like once you played, and I can't remember which game he mentions, it's not one I'm familiar with. He's like, once you play that game and understand it a little bit, then when you watch other people play it, you can appreciate their techniques, and it just opens up this whole thing to you, and you can enjoy it, and you can So that's kind of what has happened with groups for me. I don't think groups are going to be as big as esports, unfortunately. But once I sat down and forced myself to play with groups and forced myself to not just make fun of them, but to actually try to use them and understand them, I kind of like, oh yeah, this has got some good stuff. I kind of like that. So I've really been pitching that with some customers. And it's hitting, it's a big thing. And then Mike Gennady last week put this blog post on how to manage groups and to avoid group sprawl. And okay. I think that is a huge problem because I think Microsoft has overshot how easy they make groups for people to use. And so Mike's got some good stuff in there on how to, naming policies and where to find them and things like that. And I think that's a must read for any Office 365 administrator.
Nice. Mike usually does really neat stuff. And yeah, and I'm with you, right? We can complain about, make fun of groups all we want, but they're the new norm. So once again, the more you learn, the more you do, I think the better off you'll be.
I don't even make fun of them anymore. Like I get what they do. So I will say that there were some rough edges, and it's this thing. You and I've talked about this in other contexts before. When you try to make a thing, you end up having to try to make rules and governance over a bunch of disconnected things. You end up having to boil everything down to the least common denominator. And one of my complaints about groups is you can't make a read-only group member. So there's owners that own everything and can change permissions, and there's members who can't change permissions but can add stuff. Those are the only group people you have. There's no read-only. So if you're creating a SharePoint site that's based on a group, how do you give somebody read-only access? Because you can't do it at the group level. So you're like, that is dumb. How did they miss this? How in God's name did anybody miss this? And then you have to take a step back. It's that whole, what idiot thought this was a good idea thing? Well, some idiot had to worry about things that you're not worried about right now. And the thing is, teams. How do you make teams read-only? Can't really. That's lurking. That's creepy. So, but that's the thing. They've had to take this lowest common denominator. Microsoft has, the permission levels in Microsoft is 20 some of them. Teams doesn't have 20 different things, so they just basically have to take the things that are the lowest common denominator. So that's my concern about groups is we've lost some stuff, little things like that.
Well, yeah, well, I mean, and definitely the trend is, or not the trend, the norm is now is, everyone has edit and, sharing is the thing, right? I mean, everything about SharePoint and the Office 365 experience seems to be about disseminating and, everyone doing everything and not this lockdown world that we all came from where we believed in, tightly controlling with an iron fist.
Yeah. So it's been interesting trying to wrap my administrator head and my governance head around groups. It's made me, like you said, it's made me rethink the way that I've done things forever. But it's not all bad. And to your team's point and to this group thing, I was talking to another customer yesterday. I guess the same customer's doing the migration, and they're migrating from on-prem to online, so they're not dropping databases or anything. It's very deliberate, and they are basing everything on Teams. They are not going into SharePoint and creating a site and moving SharePoint content there. They are going into Teams and making a team around a thing, and then migrating the content from SharePoint into the team, which happens to store it in SharePoint on the back end.
Which is really bizarre. I mean, it makes complete sense, but it's bizarre to people in the beginning. Like, what in the world?
When the first time I'd ever seen that, and when they were talking about that, I'm like, come again? What?
Yeah.
You're doing what now?
Well, so 2 weeks ago, one of my customers was blowing me up like, hey, why can't I delete this document library in my site? I am the god of this tenant, right? Why can I not do it? And it turned out it's because it was a document library being used by Teams, and Microsoft was smart enough to lock it out so that he could not delete a document library that Teams had created for its use.
Yeah, so that's just new stuff, but it's all teams and groups and all that. Good stuff. Good new tricks for us old dogs to learn. I like it.
Yeah, it wears me out. There's so much to learn.
I think it's fun. I'm enjoying it. One thing that's not Microsoft specific, but I thought would be fun to us to talk about. I saw a headline the other day that Dropbox has acquired a new company, HelloSign, which is not in itself very exciting. But one of the things that they bought HelloSign for was their workflow integration, their workflow APIs. And I definitely see, and it's been the case for a while, but Dropbox is trying to edge in on SharePoint Online and OneDrive and all that. And this was an obvious one-to-one thing. I saw the connection.
Yeah, if we were doing one of those, buy or sell type of shows, I would be 100% sell on Dropbox. I just do not think that they are long for this world.
I don't use them anymore. I do everything in OneDrive. So in that token, I completely agree with you. But I haven't looked, anything farther than that. But I can definitely see that thinking. I think all the other places that do this, they did one thing better than anybody else for a really long time. But that one thing became so critical that all the other players had to do it, and they do it well enough. And I think, Dropbox is going to go away.
Yeah, I mean, to your point, right? They were great. They drove the OneDrive to where it is today. And a lot of these other platforms, but I just can't imagine that Dropbox's model continues to survive because excuse me, OneDrive inside the Office 365 ecosystem. I mean, as you embrace it, you're just so much lights up, so much is there. It's just unfathomable how you could look at it and be like, I've got all that, but I think now I also want to buy Dropbox to store files.
And when I was talking to this customer about migrating, we were talking about different tools. And I'm like, one of the tools you have to think about is OneDrive. The OneDrive client is a great basic migratory tool for custom documents and syncing up to SharePoint document libraries. And, it's just, it's stupid. But and then another client I was working with, they're bringing a bunch of machines online, and they've got one office that is bandwidth restricted. And they were lamenting that when they fired up OneDrive and hooked them up here, there's going to be this big storm of data getting downloaded, and everybody's, I'm like, but there won't, because they use files on demand. So just make sure the files on demand is not disabled, and there'll be a little burp while it brings down the metadata, and then it won't be anything else besides that. And they're like, no. And I'm like, oh, yeah, it's really, yeah. Yeah. It's great stuff.
And I'm obviously I haven't worked in corporate IT and gosh, I can't even guess the number, probably 2001 2001, maybe 2. Wow, that was a long time ago. That was 7. Oh my God, I'm old.
You're so old.
But yeah, I mean, in this day and age, just complete tangent thought there, the internet has just got to be like, I mean, that's got to be like the most important thing that IT does, is make sure that, by golly, there is a fast internet connection running to the CEO's desk. I feel like that's the thing that gets you fired in this day and age is the internet up or down? And that's, when I first started in IT, the internet was like this thing that we didn't even like care about. Like, yeah, I used it to download stuff on Napster, and that was about it.
Yep. Yeah, and that is one thing that I've had discussions with customers who are migrating from on-prem to online is, what's your internet pipe capacity right now? Oh, I don't know. How can you not know? Like, every single thing that you do is going to be on that pipe. You have to know where it's at. I don't know.
That to me just seems like reckless and irresponsible, right? I feel like the answer needs to be, well, we have, this internet trunk over here from this corp, this internet trunk from this completely different provider, and then this backup internet thing that comes in the back door that, barely works. But, I mean, I feel like that would be, if I was the CIO of any company, that would be the way that I saw the world.
Yeah, and I agree. I think that it is such a radical shift from how IT has looked at the internet before that they just don't even think that that's a thing. I mean, it's just like, but then when you say it, they're like, oh yeah, you have no idea. But they just,
Yeah. So yeah, those are very, because we got a few listeners here other than our moms. We'd love this feedback, right? I mean, if you're corporate IT today, what is your view on the internet? Like, I mean, is it the piece de resistance that we think it is, or are you kind of like, whatever? Or are you like Todd's customer? You're like, I don't really know what our internet is. I mean, how important is the internet in your environments? I'd love to hear, on Twitter, Facebook, wherever you want to tell us this stuff.
Yeah, I think it's, it's funny how things shift. Back when I was an admin, when email went down, everybody went home, but that was an email server that was on-prem. But if my SharePoint server went down, nobody cared. And then a few years later, if my SharePoint server went down and it was down for about 30 minutes or so, then everybody went home because that's where every document was. But if the internet connection went down, you can't catch the news, you can't download, But I think we've moved that spot now. But yeah, if the internet connection goes down and it's down 30 minutes, an hour, people just can't work. But hopefully they're using OneDrive and they're syncing locally, and that helps a little bit. But
yeah, I know. Like, we've had days, like the internet didn't work here for the day, and yeah, I mean, just literally, you're like, all right, well, we're gonna go to the zoo or something, right? There's just literally no reason to bother trying to work.
Yeah, I have 2 internet connections at home. And so my website went out last week because my main internet connection is a cable modem, and it's super duper fast and fairly reliable, and it's the one that hosts my website. But my router, I've also got a DSL connection, which is super duper slow, but is stable when my cable modem isn't. And my cable modem went out, and it was out for a couple hours, and I had no idea. The way that I found out my cable modem was out was I got a ping that my website was down. And so, of course, I pop in, no, Mo, my website's up, because it's local to me. It's just, across the room here. But then it was because my cable modem had went down, rebooted my cable modem, came back up, but then the IP address changed, so I got to experience some DNS fun. But yeah, I consider it business essential. I pay for 2 internet connections and hardware to make that switch because I can't work without it.
I just live in a place where I can just trust the internet works.
So that's the thing. On one hand, I'm like, yeah, this rarely happens. But on the other hand, it happened so transparently that I didn't even notice. The only thing that I noticed was I was doing something, and like the folks in the chat room were experiencing now, like YouTube was slow or something. I'm like, YouTube. So well, it's turned because I was used to having a 350 meg pipe, and now I had a 7 meg pipe. That was what I was experiencing. But yeah, it's business essential for me.
Yeah, well, and that's the other weird thing. Our internet numbers now that like at home are just their cartoon numbers. And so, yeah, a couple weeks ago when I was in Tampa, in Fort Lauderdale, the hotel there, the internet was just ridiculous. It was like 5 and 5 or something. And it was unusable. I'm like, yeah.
Yep. And I remember the first cable modem I got had the same bandwidth as a T1. A T1, the holy grail of internet connections. and that T1 rocked 1.54 megabits per second. And that was like, I would talk about that at work, and I worked at a software company, a nerd company, and I'd be all like, yeah, I got T1 speeds on my kid, and they would bow when I walked by. Like, that was a big deal. Yeah, now I think I'm paying for like a 500 megabit package, something like that.
Yeah, I'm with you. I remember we went from an ISDN line,
128K. Yep.
there you go, to we were testing out this, Sprint had this new technology. It was like 1.2, 1.5, something like that megs. We kept that for testing and IT only. So the entire company ran fine on a 128K ISDN. And then me and Paul and another guy, we had 1 meg to ourselves. And the torrents that you could pull. I mean, the technical content.
Articles and the patches. The
Yes.
patches came down so fast. You could really get machines patched.
It's crazy.
So we got a couple minutes left. You want to talk about how SharePoint lists are getting cooler and cooler?
I don't.
Well, we don't have to. We can save that for next week. We can get a tease.
I mean, we've had more like valid content in this show than I think we've had in the last 6 months combined. So maybe we should hold one more piece of that.
Right. We've been working hard.
Let's hold on to that. We'll make them wait on the cooler and cooler for next week.
Okay. The folks in the chat room, though, did get the link. The folks in the chat room are lagged like 8 minutes, so they may not ever see this, but...
Yeah. So what about Community Corner? Looks like you're going to, is there SharePoint Saturday, Kansas City? Is that?
There is, way in October. So SharePoint Saturday, Kansas City. Sign up for that. We'll put the link below. I'm going to be there. I haven't talked to them about presenting anything. Hell, I don't even know if they want me, but I plan on going down there. But if you're in the Kansas City area, go hang out with those folks, Sharon and Jonathan and all those folks. You and me in like 2 weeks, we're going to be in Austin.
I know. Hopefully it will not be -5 degrees in Austin. That'd be real awkward.
Yep, SP TechCon Austin. If you haven't signed up yet, go to sptechcon.com. Sign up for that. And then a month after that, I'm going to be in Kansas City Monday, March 11th, talking about my new favorite thing, groups.
Ooh.
Talking about that down there, driving down there, hitting the superchargers, loving life like that. And then coming home from that and then meeting up with you at the North American Collaboration Summit down in Branson. That's collabsummit.org.
Yeah, that one, that place is just not easy to get to, folks. I don't know how else to put it.
Or get out of. Once you get there, it's like so tough.
I mean, I think you should go. You should sign up for my all-day Power Apps and Flow course while you're there. But whoa, the travel was going to be an adventure.
Yeah, and I still need to get back with you to figure that out.
Yep.
And then you and I are going to be in Omaha, March 29th, doing a Power Appsy thing all day on Friday the 29th. I don't have the details on how to sign up for that, but I'm sure you can put that in the show notes. And then Saturday, SharePoint Saturday Omaha. I heard they got there's a big zoo in Omaha, the Henry Dorley Zoo. I hear they got one of the trained chimps there to do the keynote. They said to set their expectations very low.
Wait a minute. I thought I was doing the keynote. Are you trying to say something here?
Your arms are very long, very chimp-like in appearance.
No, it reminded me, though, so we have a local bar that we call the Train Stop, but then everybody actually calls it the Monkey Bar. And so the kids are like, why is it the Monkey Bar? So I had to tell my kids the reason was Monkey Bars back in the 80s. Some nice people who owned the bar had a monkey, and it was hang out and drink and smoke with you in the bar all day. And so that's how I got the name as the Monkey Bar. That was back before that was complete. Like, there wasn't the internet. There wasn't a viral video about it, so PETA couldn't show up and do bad things to him. So yeah.
Yep, more innocent times there. And then right after SharePoint Saturday Omaha, right, matter of fact, in the middle of it probably,
Yep.
I'm going to fly over to Stockholm, Sweden, hang out with my friends over there for the SharePoint Exchange Forum 2019. Looks like I'm going to be doing some PowerShell for that, some group stuff, and then hanging out in Stockholm. Mark and Julie and I are going to be there, going to get the company together. Love that. Love going over there. So if you're going to be in Europe, if you live in that area, I'd love to see you at the SharePoint Exchange Forum.
No, yeah, Sweden. That's I've never been, but it seems like one of the places that I would like.
You would hate it less than you hate traveling to other places.
Yeah, that's what I kind of figure. And it is completely random story, but you can make fun of me. I'm a dumb American.
Yeah.
So we have one of our customers is a large international manufacturer. They, Japan, their headquarters is in Switzerland. We got the U.S., a bunch of places. So we're building some apps for them. And I was on the phone with them the other day, every time you get on the phone with these guys, like when I join the call, there's like 7 different languages happening, and then everybody dumbs it down to English when I get on, which I appreciate.
Yeah.
And yeah, and good old Shane tried to make some reference to, trying to show how worldly I was. I made some reference to those guys. They're all sitting there in their Switzerland office. It's a Swiss company. I called Switzerland Sweden. And they're like, well, we're not really, I probably prefer Switzerland over, since that's the local. It's just like, damn it. All right, I knew, right? I mean, I understand they were 2 different, right? I wasn't that. I was just in line. There's not a lot of Swiss countries in the world, and the wrong one came out of my mouth, and I just felt dumber than usual. So I thought you'd enjoy that.
No, that's, there's a lot of those. And in the U.S., we don't have a lot of those because we just have one country, and that's funny. That's good stuff.
There you go.
And then after we've recovered from all of that, the SharePoint conference, May 21st through the 23rd. MGM Grand, Las Vegas. Shane and I'll be there doing any number of things, hanging out. Going to be a great time.
Are we going to work on a tan this time? We didn't get to the pool last year. I think we should have a pool day in this coming conference.
We can get matching Speedos. It'll be adorable.
Can we do the podcast live from the pool? That seems like a reasonable idea.
I think so. Let's just plan on that. We'll just do the podcast live from the pool. Yeah.
We'll just bust out my iPhone 7 and I'll just hold it out. Use my really long arms to hold it way out here, and we'll just
we won't even need a selfie stick. We've got your arm.
See, it's a plan.
That's awesome. The chat room will never hear this because you will close this stream before they get caught up. But thanks to everybody in the chat room. YouTube's having some problems today, buffering, so they are legitimately 8 to 10 minutes behind. Hopefully the recording went well. We thank them for suffering through. They've been chatting in the past about the stuff we've talked about. So thanks to them. That's all I got for this week, man. What about you?
No, let's call it less than an hour. Our viewers will appreciate that.
That is a win. So thanks, everybody. We will talk to you all next week. Thanks to the folks in the chat room. You won't hear this, but we'll stick around for a while and chat. Talk to you later.